What happens when a kid tries to trick Magnus Carlsen, the best chess player in the world? This kid, Nurassyl Primbetov, was playing against Magnus in a team championship, and obviously he was panicking. He was only 11 years old and was battling against the final boss in a blitz match. So, of course, he came up with a devious plan to trick Magnus and hopefully get a point for the team. But to really understand how it ended up to that masterful trick, we have to start from the beginning. Game starts with pawn e4 for Magnus. This kid goes c5, and that is very funny. If you didn't know, c5 is the starting move for the Sicilian defense opening, which is also the most played opening by Magnus. Primbetov not only challenged the final boss, but he also decided to give him field advantage. And for that, we are going to call him Prime from now on. Anyways, let's go back to the game. After a few moves, we reach this position. Both players have developed their pieces, but then Prime does something unexpected. He goes on the attack with pawn d4. Hold on. Is he trying to put pressure on Magnus? Yeah, he is, but Magnus does the best play. First, he takes the knight on c6, which checks the king, so Prime has to take. In doing so, Black is forced into having double pawns. After that, Magnus just moves back the knight. This was a nice attempt by Prime, but they both realized they needed to protect the kings a bit more. So they castle before the big battle happens. At last, Magnus goes g3. Prime senses the danger, so he moves the knight out of the way. What danger, you ask? Well, pawn e5. Not only that, but now he can go queen c7, putting pressure on the pawn with both the knight and the queen. Magnus sees that and defends it with the rook. But now, Prime fears nothing. He goes rook d8 and then looks at Magnus like he's developing a master plan. Magnus, however, is unbothered. He goes h5. Prime pushes it out, and then Magnus forces a bishop exchange. Here, though, Prime makes a slight mistake. You see, this knight on g5 is kind of dangerous, and of course Prime sees that and wants to remove it from that position. But he rushes and goes queen e7. Hold on, why is this a mistake? The knight has to move now, right? Not really, because Magnus can just go queen d2 protecting it. The correct move was to go pawn h6. The knight would be forced to move, and then Prime could have proceeded with his c4 plan. In reality, the knight is safe, and the queen has eyes on the h6 square, which is dangerous. Prime, however, does not have fear in his eyes, so he goes with the original c4 plan. But Magnus is a bit too good. He puts the knight on e4, which is a very crucial square in chess. A move too late, Prime threatens the g5 square with the h6 pawn. But didn't I tell you that the queen has eyes on that square? Well, Prime realizes, which is why he went king g7 to protect that pawn. After Magnus puts the knight on d6, we see Prime fall into desperation. His hand on his forehead, he realizes we are entering endgame territory. After a few moves, we reach this position. With only 13 seconds, Prime moves the knight to b6, his first real blunder. Why is it a blunder? It's not necessarily the knight movement, but the position of the pieces. Because now Magnus has knight c6, targeting both the queen and the rook. Prime thinks, he looks at the camera, realizes he might be cooked, and moves the knight to d5, attacking the queen with only 7 seconds left. Magnus starts to get serious. He only had 36 seconds left, and he spent 10 seconds on this next move. Queen takes h6 pawn, a blunder. Is this finally time for Prime to take the lead? Maybe, but first, he has to take the queen. Magnus takes the other queen. Prime steps back with the king and white takes the bishop on c8. With only 4 seconds left, Prime blunders once again. Instead of taking the knight with the rook, which would have led to 3 points down after all the exchanges, Prime instead plays passively with the f4 knight move. It's a bad move because the knight isn't protected, and as you can see, Magnus can control the game while at the same time threatening the knight. Now after a few moves, the advantage for Magnus grows even more. This continues until we reach move 52 and Prime only has a rook to his name while Magnus has +6 in pieces. Now look at that face. Not Nepo staring into the abyss and probably wondering who to accuse of cheating next, but our boy Prime. He knows he is cooked. Any good player can end this game, especially Magnus, but he has a plan. First, Magnus goes f5. Prime checks the king. Magnus defends with the rook. Any bad player here would take the rook and lose the game, but not our boy Prime. He goes e8, waiting for his chance. Magnus checks the king and puts him into a corner, then proceeds to move the pawns so he can get some extra time on the clock. But what is Prime doing? He is moving so fast, but only his rook. Look at that face. He is about to finally unleash his final trick. Rook to c6. To a beginner, that seems like a terrible move, but it's actually genius. By going to c6, he is pinning the rook to the king. And if Magnus were to get confident and take it, the game would have ended in a draw. Remember, this is a team competition, and Nepo was looking at the game, realizing the trick. He looked at Magnus worried for a second, hoping he notices. And of course, Magnus sees it. He goes knight f7, checking the king. I think he even toys a bit with the kid too. After the check, the king moves to g8, Magnus takes the knight back, and he repeats the position. Nepo is out here grinning, realizing that Magnus is returning the favor to the kid for trying the trick. Then at move 63, Magnus takes the rook. Look at that face. Prime knew it was not going to work, but he had to try. If you are confused why Magnus could suddenly take the rook, well, that's because now the king has safe legal moves. The h8 square is covered by the knight, but the f8 square is safe. The game ends shortly after with rook e8. But the video after is still funny. Magnus gives a handshake to the kid for trying, and then has a laugh with Nepo about the kid's plan. Meanwhile, Prime is looking at his idol, hoping he made a good impression. Good job, kid! Maybe you didn't defeat Magnus, but you made everyone else really proud. Thank you for watching, bye for now, and don't forget to subscribe.